Welcome to Behind the Law with Justin Clarke, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Law. I'm here with attorney Justin Clarke, and today we're talking about saving your home. There's got to be a way to keep you in that house so you don't have to move and uproot your entire family and lose your neighbors and your friends and, those memories in that home that you've been in for so long. So let's try to stay there. There are remedies, and here is Justin Clarke.
Now, we talked about if you're Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, which you have to go online and look because it's not just something you naturally know. None of my clients know if they're Fannie or Freddie. You have to go to knowyouroptions.com or freddiemac.com and do a loan lookup to see if you're Fannie or Freddie, because that changes everything in regards to how we're going to save the house. Mm-hmm. If you are Fannie or Freddie, we talked in the last half hour about how to do a modification under the HAMP program. They can give you an interest rate of 2%. We can keep you in your house. They will not do a principal reduction, but we can keep you in your house at a lower interest rate. Now, however, a lot of people come to me and they're current. They say, Justin, I'm current on my mortgage. I don't want to ruin my credit, but yet I'm getting screwed because I'm current. What do I do? Well, there's a little invention called the HARP program, H-A-R-P. Now we're under HARP 2.0, which the first HARP was a complete mess and a disaster, anyone will tell you. Mm-hmm. HARP 2.0 has been a lot better. And I think HARP stands for Home Affordable Refinance Program, or call RP Funding if you want to do a HARP.
I like that.
That's the RP at the end. So go to rpfunding.com. HARP is a refinance program. It means that it's actually new money coming in to pay off the old mortgage, and you're going to get a whole new mortgage. There are going to be some fees, but it's a way to reduce your interest rate without ruining your credit, okay? It's going to take very little time. You can do it if you're underwater. There's no appraisal required typically. So you can do this thing. It's one way to refinance an underwater home without having to go delinquent, okay? HARP is a refinance program. It's new money coming in to pay off old money. Let's make no mistake about that. But you can do it if you're underwater, and your credit's not going to be affected. But there are some requirements to it. First of all, your mortgage must be Fannie or Freddie, and it must have been purchased before June 1, 2009. You have to be current on the mortgage without any late payments in the last 6 months. And a late payment's defined as more than 30 days late. All right. So you could not have been late in the last 6 months, and you can't have been late more than twice in the last 12 months. So if you meet all those requirements, you might want to call me to discuss a HARP program, because it's really the only way, if you have Fannie or Freddie, to refi if you're not late on your payment. That's the HARP program in a nutshell. And now you can only do one HARP. Under the guidelines, you can only do it one time, so let's make sure the time is right. The problem now with the HARP and why the people who do HARP, their phones aren't ringing quite as much right now is because the rates have gone up. So it is totally based on the prevailing rate. So if you're at a 5.5 now, 3 weeks ago you could have got it down to a 3.5 or whatever, and you're going to save a lot of money per month. But now if it's 4.5, it's a math equation to see if you're going to save enough money to make it worth going through that process.
Now, we have heard from Robert Palmer, RP Funding, that one of the first things that you'll hear, besides hearing this from Justin Clarke, is you may very well hear from your bank. Your bank may send you a letter, and they may say that we have been reviewing your loan and you're eligible for HARP. The best advice from Robert is, whether you choose to do business with your bank or you choose to do business somewhere else, if your bank says you're eligible for HARP, chances are other financial institutions will as well. So he recommends, and I think you're in tune with him, shop around. Make sure that everybody's on an equal playing field and you're getting the best possible deal. Because sometimes that first person that calls you and you think, well, it's easy. They've already approved me. I guess I can just go down there and sign some papers and hunky-dory. What are their rates? What are their fees? What's in it for them? What's in it for you? Make sure you shop around no matter who you choose.
I'm going to take it a step further. If you're going to do a HARP and you get that letter or even a phone call from your existing lender, I say do not do the HARP through the existing lender. Because as incompetent as they are, when you've called them to try to work it out before through a modification or whatever, they are equally as incompetent in doing the HARP program for you. Now, they're going to make that call to you, and they're going to say, hey, John Smith, It's going to be easy. Just send me this document in and everything's fine and it'll be cool and we'll go on our way and you're going to only pay this much. It's not that easy. They make it sound easy. That's their sales pitch, but they are equally as incompetent in doing this HARP, which should be so easy and so quick. No appraisal. I mean, what you don't even need an appraisal. So what is the problem here? I guarantee you, if you do it through the lender you have now, it's going to take longer, and it's going to be more of a difficult process where you're going to get upset. And I would recommend doing it through someone local who you can go into their office and talk to them. Don't do the HARP through your existing lender.
And I guess with the interest rates rising, it would be careful advice to advise people. Find out each institution when they lock your rate.
Oh, yeah. You got to get it locked in now. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. I'm just a little dummy attorney here in Orlando. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have any sort of influence in Washington, or I'm not advising Bernanke when to make statements that might not be so smart. So I don't know much about what's going to happen, but I can only imagine they're going to continue to climb. I think we probably hit the rock bottom in interest rates, and now we're going to be in a little bit of more of a regular economy, so to speak, when it comes to interest rates. So I think if we're going to do anything, now's the time to at least look into it. So anyone out there that's current, and if your interest rate is higher than your neighbor's, it's worth a phone call to see if it's worth going through the HARP program to refinance your house to save you monthly, and it can save significant amounts of money, especially if you're underwater. I mean, if you're underwater, your neighbor owes $100,000 on the same house you owe $200,000 on. Your neighbor's at 3%, you're at 7%. I mean, let's at least try to get the interest rate down a little bit to make you feel a little bit better about your housing situation.
Yeah. We're going to take another break, but you can get legal advice right now by calling Justin's office at 321-282-1055. Associates are standing by. We'll be right back.
If you're having any legal problems that could cost you your home, remember the offices of Gregory and Clarke are your one-stop shop for saving your home. Short sales, foreclosure, bankruptcy, refinancing, it's all under one roof. Just give them a call right now at 321-282-1055, and you can schedule a free consultation. We'll be right back.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
I'm sure that many of them are wondering, in opposition to the HAMP, does this HARP mean we're starting the clock over with a 30 or a 15 year?
Stay tuned. Justin Clarke will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Law with Justin Clarke. We're continuing last week's discussion about foreclosure and the remedies that are available to you right now, but you've got to act quickly because you never know what's going to be happening out there with interest rates and much, much more. And, of course, saving your house is very important, but I'm sure this begs a question from our listeners who are still welcome to call us at 407-297-9696 or 855-297-96. I'm sure that many of them are wondering, in opposition to the HAMP, does this HARP mean we're starting the clock over with a 30 or a 15 year?
Yes.
We're starting back at scratch.
It is. In a HARP, you're normally starting over. In a HAMP program, They can keep it as it is. Let's say you owe 15 years left. You can sometimes keep it at 15, or they can extend it all the way to 40 years to make that a payment affordable based on your gross monthly income. Now, I think it was a pretty stupid idea to name all these programs almost the exact same thing. I mean, the confusion that it created. I mean, the people who listen to this show at least get an explanation, but I'm doing this thousands of times. I've done this 5,000 times now for people, so I have to understand it. But I can only imagine if I was a plumber or a dentist that I hear HARP, HAMP, HUMP. I wouldn't know the difference. I mean, you would have thought they would have named them a little bit better and different things because it is quite confusing. So don't be embarrassed if you're confused.
Let me ask you a couple of pertinent questions on this. Does the HAMP also cover second homes, investment homes, vacation homes?
It does. Under HAMP Tier 1, the regular first HAMP, it was only your primary home. HAMP Tier 2 absolutely covers a secondary home. There are some guidelines on that. But maybe importantly too, maybe you got in trouble in 2009, did a modification, got your job back. Now we're losing income again. We can do another one. There's no requirement that we can only do one modification. So even if you've done one in the past, don't think, oh, that was my one ticket out of this. We can't do it again. You absolutely can do it again under HAMP Tier 2, which is an excellent idea. And the guidelines are better for you now, where if you're Fannie or Freddie, you're not getting a principal reduction. If you're not Fannie or Freddie, the government's really incentivizing these banks to do principal reductions to get the value of your home down closer to the market value.
All right, very good. We do have Paul on the line. Paul is calling us from Kissimmee, Florida. Paul, what's your question?
Hi, guys. I'm an agent. I've called before. I love the show. But why would anybody entertain a loan mod if they're, say, upside down $100,000, which is typical here in Florida?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why they would entertain it. And again, I've been one of the biggest advocates of short sales over the last several years in the world, really. I have talked to thousands of clients and helped thousands of clients through the short sale process. However, Paul, we're in a different time now. We're in a time where these people, if they're going to go out and do a short sale, they obviously have to have another place to live. Now, maybe their grown adult daughter has a house in their backyard they can go live in, and that's fine. But when it comes time to go rent, the rental rates are very high now. So the way I look at a modification, even if you can't get a principal reduction, is almost like you're renting the house from yourself. So even if you're underwater and you can get a modification done to get that payment down, much less than you'd even go pay rent somewhere, you might as well stay in the house where your kids can walk to school and you get the mortgage interest credit. But I understand what you're saying as well. But oftentimes, to me, instead of saying, okay, let's do a short sale, I say, well, let's look at what the payment's going to be if you do a modification, and then let's look at rental rates in the neighborhood you want to be in, and if your mortgage payment's going to be less than you're going to pay for rent, and you plan on staying in this house for 5 to 7 years, I imagine the market's going to go up.
All right, very good. So thank you, Paul, for that question. If you'd like to join the program, 407-297-9696, 407-297-9696, or you could call toll-free and talk to Justin right now. A holiday weekend, but we're here live, 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. Justin.
Now, we've talked a lot about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We spent the last 45 minutes talking about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but there are other types of mortgages as well. A lot of you have an FHA mortgage.
Right.
You've heard a lot about FHA mortgages. It's another government-backed modification, basically. So the FHA controls everything. Now, let's say you're current on an FHA mortgage, but your rate is too high. I don't want to ruin my credit. What do? You can also you can't do the HARP under FHA, but you can do what's called the FHA Streamline refinance, which is very similar to the HARP program, not called the HARP, but where you don't need an appraisal. So you can, in essence, do a refinance on a house that's underwater, get that interest rate down a little bit, but let's keep in mind the FHA Streamline is also based totally on the prevailing market rates. So this isn't you're going to get a 2% thing. This is based on what the rates are at the time.
Here's something to think about. Are you working on a short sale? Whether you're working on a short sale or currently in the market for one, the offices of Gregory and Clarke can help out. Just give their office a call right now at 321-282-1055. We'll be right back.
Behind the Law is pre-recorded for TV, but you can ask your questions live on the radio Sundays at noon on News 96.5. And if you need legal advice right now, Justin's associates are standing by. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clarke a call at 321-282-1055.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
For somebody that doesn't have a Freddie or Fannie Mae loan, is there anything that can be done when you're underwater and nothing's going on?
Stay tuned. Justin Clarke will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to the show. Yes, it's Behind the Law featuring Justin Clarke of attorneys Gregory and Clarke right there in Longwood. We'll give you all the contact information before the show ends. But right now, let's get to the phones because our callers have a tendency to wait until the last segment. So we've got to rush and get them all in. Eric in DeBerry, good to have you along for the show. What's your question for Justin Clarke?
Trying to find out, for somebody that doesn't have a Freddie or Fannie Mae loan, is there anything that can be done when you're underwater and nothing's going on? You know?
Do you just have a conventional mortgage? Do you know if it's FHA, VA, or is it just a regular old mortgage?
It's a privately held bank loan.
Yeah, sometimes you can actually, but because you're not regulated by the Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, any of those guidelines. Sometimes even if you're current and you want to do a loan modification, you can do a principal reduction. Now, this is a little bit rare, but I have had plenty of clients who have gotten a principal reduction while current on their non-Fannie, Freddie, FHA, or VA loan. So it's certainly worth a shot, or at least worth talking about. I think the biggest thing for you is we'd want to sit down and see what kind of income you have coming in, because if you're making $15,000 a month, they're going to laugh at me. But if we can show that it's really close there, it might be worth a shot.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Let's go to Mike. Mike, what's your question?
Hello. My question is, I have a FHA loan. I'm not FHA, but I have a Freddie Mac loan, and I am not underwater, but my interest rate is very high at about 7.5. And am I qualified for a HARP program?
Yeah, in all likelihood, yes. I mean, the HARP program was invented for you because you're current. It sounds like you haven't been late on your payment, and your interest rate is too high. So even if the market interest rates go up to 4.5, if you're in the 7s, I mean, it's going to make perfect sense to do the HARP program for you. I'd probably like to sit down and let's figure out your financial situation. You can go to the website, gregory-clarke.com, or call us at 321-282-1055. Now, sometimes it's better to do a modification. Sometimes it's better to do the HARP program. And I'm going to tell you my honest opinion about which way to go. So let's sit down and talk about it. And if we're going to do a HARP, we're going to send you to someone who does HARP. If it's going to be a modification, we're going to keep you right there.
All right, let's go to my neck of the woods. It's one of my neighbors. And yes, indeed, Bud. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, buddy. What you got on your mind?
Well, I'm representing our daughter who lives in High Springs, Florida. She has a home that she signed the papers on 5/28/09, but it didn't get over to Freddie and Fannie Mae until June. When she checked with the bank, she was advised that because the papers were signed on the 28th, but it was not completed with Fannie Mae until June, she was not eligible for HARP. Could you please advise?
It's certainly a tough one there. We'd have to look at the paperwork. And great voice, by the way. What a radio voice Bud
I like
has,
that.
right? Does everyone in the villages have such a great voice, Rob? Is it
yes,
you and Bud?
Oh, yeah. No, they all do. Everybody.
It's going to be a tough call. We might want to maybe have her call the office and let's look into it because, it does clearly say June 1, 2009 is the origination date. So I guess it depends on when the loan was technically originated. Now, maybe we could fight that. But the HARP program applies to Fannie or Freddie loans prior to June 1, 2009. So they're right on the border there.
We're going to take a short break, but before we go, are you struggling to make your mortgage payments? Refinancing your mortgage is an easy solution that can save your home and save your money. And Justin Clarke has worked on thousands of them. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clarke a call right now at 321-282-1055, and a free consultation with Justin Clarke will give you your options. We'll be right back.
You can find more Behind the Law on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gregory and Clarke, where there's plenty of past episodes with valuable information on how to save your home from the mortgage companies. Check it out.
Ask your question live. Tune into FM 96.5 WDBO Sundays at noon and ask Justin your question.
So there are programs for FHA, for VA, for Freddie Mac, and for Fannie Mae, just tons of different, just a plethora of options out there. If your interest rate is too high, and I think anything 5% or above is too high, now's the time to do something about it.
Stay tuned. Justin Clarke will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
All right, we've got about 2.5 minutes to share with you before the end of the program. We're talking modifications. We're talking about HAMP. We're talking about HARP. Ways to save your home with Justin Clarke.
And we didn't really touch on the FHA thing too much. I'll be brief. If you have an FHA loan, you can do the streamline or you can do the HAMP modification. So if you have FHA, it absolutely does not eliminate you from HELP. And in fact, there's some rumors about FHA doing a lot of principal reductions under the PRA program. So if you have FHA and you're underwater, FHA, and your interest rate is too high, absolutely we can work with you and do something. Now, if you have a VA loan, VA is good too. VA is participating in the HAMP program to do a modification. Now, let's say you have a VA loan in your current, because a lot of our veterans say, hey, I don't want to screw my country. I fought for my country. My country was nice enough to help me with the VA loan. I'm not going delinquent on that, and I appreciate that too. If you are current on a VA loan, you can do the IRRRL, interest rate reduction refinance loan, which will help you refi your VA loan even if you're underwater. So there are programs for FHA, for VA, for Freddie Mac, and for Fannie Mae, just tons of different, just a plethora of options out there. If your interest rate is too high, and I think anything 5% or above is too high, now's the time to do something about it.
All right, very good. How about your website?
Gregory-Clarke.com. The phone number, 321-282-1055. Always happy to sit with the good listeners of News 96.5. And Rob Newton, always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of Behind the Law with Justin Clarke. But if you still have any questions, don't wait for next week's show. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clarke a call right now at 321-282-1055. They've got the answers. And don't forget to tune in next week for our continued discussion on foreclosures, modifications, and more right here on TV 27.
Thank you for watching Behind the Law with Justin Clarke. Be sure to join us again next week as Justin takes you behind the law and answers your legal questions.